Welcome to Great Talking Entertainment. I'm your host, KJ, and this is the YouTube channel where I review movies and TV shows from all your favorite superheroes, including Marvel Comics, DC Comics, and much more. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Great Talking Entertainment official channel. Now let's go, baby. Welcome back to the YouTube channel, everyone. My name is KJ, and I'm the host, and today is my spoiler review for the new series on FX, Love Story, John F. Kennedy Jr. and Carolyn, Bessette, Episode 7 spoiler review. If you have not seen this, please pause this. But before you go, could you hit the like button, aka the thumbs up button? That would help my YouTube channel out, and I truly appreciate that. Come back. Let me know what you think about Episode 7. Did you hate it? Did you love it? What do you think is going to happen on Episode 8 and 9? Because we only got 2 more episodes left. Let me know in the comments below. And again, this is a spoiler review. Y'all been warned. Now, let's get into it. This episode starts off with the two couple coming home back to Manhattan after their 2-week honeymoon in a post-wedding bliss, as they talk about they're enjoying their time. They had fun getting matching tattoos. And all of a sudden, they're surprised that they see a small army of paparazzi waiting for them at their apartment building. And I thought it was really cool because this is the way this show's letting you know. They switched it to a VHS type tape graphics, letting you know that either it really did happen or something like this did actually happen at the time, because they did have video cameras, not like the cell phones we have today, but they had video cameras. Camcorders is the word I'm looking for. But I thought it was crazy too, that they got on top of that vehicle and stuff. But I thought that was just crazy. And when they get in their apartment, we see Oprah, the Today Show, Barbara Walter, everyone, and their mama wants to sit down with Carolyn as John is going through the PR request, while Carolyn looks out her window at the paparazzis, just petrified, because literally, this is like a fairy tale turning a nightmare, because now realistically, in both ways, the honeymoon is over. Whether it's the honeymoon of a dating phase or just the honeymoon after a marriage, whatever it is, whatever version you would like to go through that, it's over. And now they start their life together. And here's one of the challenges. Because again, John F. Kennedy Jr. is very famous, and now she's famous, because even in this episode, you see he's very calm, and he's bringing good vibes, and he's like, babe, it's gonna be okay. We'll give him our first official portrait as husband and wife, and in his mind, he thinks he can control this, or, in his mind too, he's like, you just gotta let him have these moments. They're gonna take the photos. You just try to find a way to just get used to it, And, ultimately, you can't really stay fighting them their whole life in this situation. And in her mind, she kind of just said, okay, just make sure they harmonize on the kumbayas. But, he's not getting it, the idea, this is tough for her. Because, she's never been in this situation. She doesn't understand, the paparazzi are going to be mean to her and stuff just to get her react, so they can have a new headline and stuff. Because as they're leaving holding hands and pose for the cameras, and again, the car, the paparazzis again, I thought it was crazy that he got on top of the hood of the vehicle. And I don't think they were leaving. and it just got very scary, and they try to make it look dangerous, and like they try to make it look like the paparazzi are ruthless, like they're about to get violent, and one thing too Carolyn's struggle is she gets an interview with Ralph Lauren of the man himself, has apparently called her in himself and interview her attires, it seems. But, she knows that she can easily get this job now because of her husband. And in her mind, she knows that they're not looking at her resume, her past skills at Calvin Klein. And that's just the harsh reality. And for her, that hurts her feelings, that breaks her heart. She feels like she doesn't have power. This doesn't feel like she earned it, which in reality she has earned this thing because she is very skillful. She is very good at doing her job. And it's sad, but I get what she wants, but this is one of the challenges she has to remind herself, like, hey, I can put in the work. I can work hard. Right? And, what I do like about this, it kind of feels like the 90s. It's stuff, this scene. Because she was wearing like a black turtleneck and a pair of jeans. And that was pretty casual for a 90s outfit, too. So I thought that was really cool, too. And as they walk her to the lobby, suddenly they faced with guests of another strong and many more bigger groups of paparazzi just waiting for her outside the building. And she's having a panic attack. And she just feels embarrassed. But she doesn't realize, like, Ralph Lauren also is famous, and paparazzi gets on him, so like it's not new to him, but again, you're seeing how new this is, and this is already mentally breaking her down. And again, John, he's so used to it, so he doesn't realize like what she's going through. So both of them have to communicate with each other and try to learn how to understand each other and be there and just be there and love each other. And that's the thing they're trying to shoot for with this scene, is like they're trying to get you to be ready and anticipate. Does John comfort her? Does John understands what she's going through or talking about, and how can he help coach her through this? Give her advice like a friend would give a friend advice, in a way. And there's nothing wrong with that in a marriage, because this is a tough situation for her. So, and then we see in the next episode at the magazine office, Michael and the magazine PR team are once again trying to get John to use his popularity and Carolyn's popularity to sell more issues. And, I think that's insane. But I guess that's just the name of the game. But they keep bringing this up after all, so I do believe that maybe they get him to do it. And again, this is where Carolyn asked her husband, John, let's not do this. Let's not use our marriage or wedding photos to use it as a business. And he earlier in the last episode said he would never do that. So does he break this promise to his wife? They're kind of foreshadowing it, but and that's tough. It's tough. Like, this is where John has to, read the room, basically. And I'm also surprised, like, John never fired Michael, because, he gets a little too in his face too much at times at this place. Like, yeah, it's just a job, but, like, he brings up things like, John's gonna do an intro or like some type of narrative for a documentary for John's sister's husband. And again, we find out John has absolutely no idea what he's talking about. And later at his apartment, John and cousin Anthony, that's the cousin Anthony, are playing some gin. And when Anthony tells him that his cancer has returned, John springs into action, calling doctors, telling him what he needs to do. And this is his best friend. So you can see John slowly breaking down, like, this cannot be happening. And he can't be losing all his loved ones, and it just breaks his heart. So now we're seeing John just go through it all in like so many scenarios too. So here's Carolyn about to have a mental breakdown in this episode, and John, he's trying to keep his cool, and he kind of loses his focus because Michael from the George Company magazine, he's taking advantage of this because they do get in a huge fight later on in this episode. The next scene is where we see John is fighting with Ed, the husband of Carolyn, and talking about selling a documentary and lying about John's participation in this. And he says, if this is how you want to capitalize on our father's legacy, fine, just leave me out of this. John tells the couple when Carolyn goes to her bookshelf and picks up an issue of George with Drew Barrymore posing as Marilyn Monroe with the headlines, "Happy Birthday, Mr. President." And John brings it up as like, it's okay for everybody else to make fun of them, but it's not okay for them to poke fun of their own families. And he's asking his sister, like, why can't we do it? In Carolyn's mind, it's like a cheap and it reeks desperation. And she does not care for that stuff. Now they're full on fighting. But again, you know how I said in the last one, to me, that doesn't seem like a real sibling argument. Real siblings really, like, again, say things that are because they're so comfortable with each other, brother and sister, brother and brother, sister and sister, whatever it is. That's, again, this doesn't feel like a real sibling argument. No cheap shots, no, this and that. And they do the part where it just seems very dry. Like, even when Caroline's trying to prove her point, which she kind of does in her own way, because John is lacking certain things. She's calling him out on some BS in her mind, which she does make a point of it in this episode, but it was so dry, and I feel like, again, that they must have done multiple takes on this scene, and I think this is the best one they got out of these two actors. Between the person who plays John F. Kennedy Jr. and the actress who plays the sister, Carolyn. And it just didn't feel like a real sibling argument to me, in my opinion. And I know siblings argue in different ways, but it didn't feel natural in this scene to me. And I think when you present a show like this that is a dramatic and romantic show, you need to crank up the volume level of the emotion and the love and the anger and all that. And it just really was kind of dry. But John's like, guess what? I'm shutting down this. And they're not going to be doing no documentary. And, Carolyn, Ed is shocked, like, what? I can't believe this. And Carolyn just storms off. Now that's real. That felt realistic, Then the next scene is Carolyn is with her sister, Lauren, and she's reapplying lipstick, a gorgeous deep wine of shade, and just talked to her sister how she had to reject the Ralph Lauren job and how paparazzis are camping outside their house. And, she's bringing up, like, the Kennedy party, dinner party, where you got rich old ladies getting on her about what charity she should be taking over and what's, more important and practicing. Or, they told her if she don't establish before John answers the call of duty, talking about meaning that he could be running for president. And, you know, and also we see like cousin Anthony sitting nearby, and he's just trying to be helpful too and stuff, but seems like the cousin Anthony remains the favorite to John and Carolyn. But I don't know. I thought for a minute, because of having the cancer return, I thought for a moment I thought Anthony was gonna try to kiss Carolyn and stuff because that party he seemed a little bit on the he seemed a little bit tipsy too. And then everywhere elsewhere, John is being countered too at that party by some political advisors, and they're trying to convince him because it to them they're trying to tell him it's better to be a senator. Sounds better, much better than a former editor of George. So, and John is not immediately put off by the exchange. But again, this is the first time he realized that perhaps Anne Marie was right in not trusting John, because again, you remember she said that Carolyn's mom, Anne, was like, Carolyn's going to make all these sacrifices and John won't. John's going to do the opposite and not protect her, not looking out for Carolyn. And she shouldn't butter Carolyn up the way that John says. So I don't know. I feel like now he's getting really into the politics. You know what I like about that scene, just from that dinner party, is I don't know. This is probably just for entertaining purpose of the show. Because the way they portray John in this particular scene is if they always bring up and suggest the same thing, whether it's for the magazine, George magazine, or him running for president, or, in that type of way, which I think they want him to in this episode, it looks like if they keep bringing it up to him, it wears him down, and then John will give in. And they're kind of showing the way that Carolyn needs John, her husband, to stand on business and not be that weak and put his foot down and say, nah, we're not doing that. I'm not running for president, and I'm not using our wedding photos or our popularity to boost up my magazine. Hard work and hard dedication will pay off. That's what Carolyn needs John to be, and that's what John has been telling her, that he is going to do that he can be that guy, but he's doing the opposite when he gets surrounded too. Now, maybe Carolyn needs to be closer to her husband at these type of parties, but she don't know that because she's a rookie to being famous in this type of way. So we're seeing two couples and they're not really communicating about this particular thing, and they're not talking to each other about it. So it's gonna feel like they're keeping a secret, which will become a secret. Oh, I didn't know you're talking to my cousin Anthony like that. And it'd probably be like, oh, I didn't know you were secretly going to plan to run for president type stuff. And now it's a secret because he's becoming weak. And that's what his mom, Carolyn's mom, was worried about when she said that speech in the last episode at that wedding dinner. So I thought that was really cool that it's like, oh, Carolyn's mom, Anne, was actually right in this scene. And again, I think I want to say it's safe to say this is probably just for entertaining purpose, for a show purpose. I don't know if that is exactly how it really went down. Not sure, but for that scene, I felt the drama. I felt the excitement out of it. Like, ooh, this is getting juicy. This is getting very gossipy. So they nailed that. So it was, in a way, entertaining to watch as a viewer, basically. So they got that down right on that. So I wasn't too mad about that. But again, sometimes I feel like they're portraying the two couples in a different way sometimes for entertaining purpose, obviously. And I think this is an obvious one. So I'm not sure if this was like that true and that accurate into the real life situation of this. Also, in that scene at the dinner party, one of Caroline's kids, which would be John F. Kennedy Jr.'s niece, asks Carolyn to get candy from the doorman, and they go together, and the paparazzi appears, and Carolyn's like, okay, kid, candy party's over. We gotta start heading back. And Carolyn's like, where's my kid anyway? She was looking for her, so she comes down the elevator, frankly, looking for her daughter, and she sees the paparazzi, and then she completely freaks out on Carolyn, and they have a heart-to-heart moment, because obviously she's still mad that her brother shut down her husband's documentary and stuff, but the whole thing was so rude, and it felt out of place, especially considering, the idea that Carolyn she's still trying to figure out how to navigate this fame lifestyle and stuff, and she also doesn't want to do anything or take any offers. Like, she doesn't want to be on magazine covers like Vogue or anything like that. She turns everything down, considering the fact that in her lifetime she did not pose for a magazine editorial or even grant an interview. And if you look on YouTube, you may find maybe like 20 seconds of her speaking on camera. She really meant it when she said she wanted a privacy. Now, in this episode too, again, Carolyn delivers one of the most unpathetic speech maybe in the whole series, ending, you could have lived any other life, but you choose this life. And Caroline is like, I choose your brother despite this life. And it's kind of like a bickering. Like, Carolyn is obviously just trying to protect her brother, but she doesn't understand that Carolyn, John's wife, actually loves him and wants to be with him no matter what. And she brings up the fact that she made her a maid of honor, and Caroline just does not care. And so there's some beef, real heat between these two. So I'm not really sure too, again, was this just for entertaining purpose? Was this actually legit? Like, did they really have that type of beef with each other? I honestly don't know, but it was a very dramatic speech. Again, the point they were trying to show in the show was Carolyn is, the wife basically is a rookie at being famous, and Carolyn, the sister of John, it was just really upset at two things. One, her daughter was, a photo taken was of her daughter, which that's reasonable. And two, she's also upset that her brother John shut down the documentary of John F. Kennedy, a documentary of their father. So then we get 2 months later. John's coming home from a run when a paparazzi's waiting outside his home, beg him for Carolyn to come out for a photo, that saying that we haven't seen her in weeks. And they play like a scene in a weird way, like, come on, we just want some cash, man, like they're buddies or something. Again, they're just showing John treats the paparazzi like this is a normal thing, which it is. Honestly, this is his normal daily life, but this is not normal for his wife. This is not normal. Even after 2 months, this is tough because Carolyn is in her apartment talking to her sister Lauren about, the latest like fictional column, about false reports saying that she's addicted to pills or she's a drug addict because she's going to therapy. And, it's just getting tough on her and she doesn't like it. Even John told her, like, don't be reading that crap. It's not true. But the problem is everybody in her family, in her small town, like she mentioned, like, imagine her kindergarten teacher read this and it's like, oh no, how does that sweet little girl, like, and John doesn't seem that, right? But he's just gearing up for a cameo on the Murphy Brown while meeting his sister for lunch to attempt to patch things off their latest, argument and stuff. And this scene right here where we see John and his sister Carolyn, this felt like a siblings apologizing. Like, they didn't say sorry to each other in the way, like, oh, I'm sorry, my bad. Like, it was just kind of like she compliments him on his interview on this magazine that he did, and they're just trying to patch things up. But in their own way, in their brother and sister way, they're trying to say they're sorry and stuff. And John is like, there's a lot going on and we haven't been talking, but they're trying to patch it up, but they're not saying, hey, I'm sorry and she's sorry. But, he asked his sister to reach out to Carolyn and offer some advice how to manage and to maintain privacy. And Carol's like, yeah, but I worked really hard. And she's trying to, his sister is being big sister mode, explaining to him, like, you two got to put in the work. You two got to make an effort to try to keep privacy. John, you're letting her brother know, John, like, obviously he enjoys being in the fame. He's so used to it. Like, he's not making it such a big deal. While Carolyn, his wife, is just, again, having a mental breakdown, because Carolyn meets her sister again at this restaurant called Buddy's to celebrate a promotion that her sister got at Morgan Stanley. And I guess their nana, like, believes into what the paper, and she's worried. And then she asks how her job search's going, and she says she hasn't got a job because of the paparazzi. And Lauren has to, like, say, no, girl, you need to do this. You're doing everything for John. John this, John that. But, again, Lauren doesn't understand the relationship because she's not in the relationship. It's John and Carolyn. So it's one of those type things, too. But that was really dramatic. The two actresses who portray Carolyn and the actress who portrays Lauren, they're really good at the siblings versus the actor who plays John F. Kennedy Jr. and the actress who plays Carolyn, because they really got the sibling sister talking conversation, and they're not holding back and they're taking jabs at each other. And, she's like, look, you gotta get John to break down, and you gotta get him to understand that. And that's what a sibling would tell another sibling, like brother, sister, brother and sister. Again, like this felt like a real natural two siblings just keeping honesty about each other without actually like saying, yeah, Lauren, you're right. Yes, Lauren, you're right. Because, their siblings don't just do it like that. Not everyone. I'm not saying everybody, but real siblings do that. And then we get a scene where John walks into the office and Michael immediately rails into John and gives me like the give me a break type stuff, and they argue and they get into tat. Like, I don't know if you can punch somebody like that. not get sued, especially if you're John. Like, but Michael quit, and he says, "I hope he can't wait to watch everything just disappear," and he's never been happier after he got punched. Like, that's crazy. So now things are getting bad, and that's how this kind of like this episode ends, where John picks up the phone and calls the political advisor and meets her for dinner, and they start talking about running for president type stuff. So now John is breaking promises, and it's gonna not look good. It's gonna get bad about it, because this is he got desperate, and in a way Michael's right, but for John to go this route because of the things that Michael said to him, it's like, this to me, they're trying to make it look like John's gonna break his wife's Carolyn, his heart, right? And because he told her throughout this whole season so far, he's not into the political game. He just wants to have something like the George magazine be his thing, and be the thing that he built up, did the hard work, and he earned everything on his own. This seems like an easy cop-out, and his wife's going to be upset and be heartbroken. That's how they're portraying this. So we'll see in the next episode, but, again, 1 out of 10, I'll give this another 5. Wasn't the best. Again, it's when the sibling arguments, it's kind of weak between John and Carolyn, and I think it's just the two actor and actress who portray those characters. And I just feel like they're just really, it's not believable. And I can tell that they probably done so many retakes on that scene. Like, that was the best one they got out of them. And because it just doesn't seem realistic of two siblings having that, like, I'm sorry moment and type thing. Like, it just doesn't seem like that. But when the two actresses, the one who portrays Carolyn Bessette and her sister Lauren, they honestly, those two really make it believable that these are two sisters in a way arguing with each other, but they're being honest with each other, right? And it seems like this, again, Lauren's going to be in her sister's ear, and then Carolyn's going to be in John's ear, and then now this political advisor woman is going to be in his ear. And the one thing they're both not going to do is be husband and wife to each other and just talk about it and be honest with each other and explain. I think episode 8, hearts are going to be broken. So, but other than that, I really think, again, the only negative thing, again, I can say was just that scene where John and Carolyn met up for lunch to kind of patch things up, which I got the point, but the dialogue was so dry, and the emotion that you needed to put in that scene just wasn't living up to it. But that's my only complaint. But other than that, it was really interesting to see that turn and change. Now, I don't know how accurate it is when John F. Kennedy Jr. decided to go this route, but it feels like it. It feels real at that moment. So really good. Again, 1 out of 10. I'm giving it 5. Really good thing. And there's something that stood out. This is a line that was said by cousin Anthony, explaining to Carolyn what is like living with John. John's glass is half full persona. I had a front row seat for John's version of reality my whole life, but But fortunately for me, it's no longer my responsibility to remind him that he's a mere mortal and cannot will things into friction. Best of luck. Do not call me for advice. I am retired. That was my best line because it's going. It's like nobody warned her about a side of John F. Kennedy Jr. And it's gonna be interesting how this series displays that. So really good. But that is my spoiler review, guys. Thank you so much. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Great Talk Entertainment Official channel. Subscribe, hit that notification button so you can always be updated with all my latest content. Thank you guys, and peace.